Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Pick Swap podcast. Wow. What a day it's been. It's Tuesday at 1 p.m. and there has been more drama, I guess to say, than in a singular day than I've seen in a very, very long time. I'm with Sean, of course. Sean, how are you feeling right now?
Yeah, I mean, despite not being on a max contract myself, I am attending my media availability today, so I'm here and locked in doing my job.
Yeah, I guess that's the point now is where do we go from here? So I guess to recap at this point, what we know so far, Ben Simmons was supposed to have a media availability, a press conference session. The first one that we were going to hear directly from him since Game 7. About 15 minutes after the scheduled time, we got a report basically saying like Ben's not going to show up today. He's not talking today. Immediately followed by a report saying he was kicked out of practice and suspended for a game due to conduct detrimental to the team, which was then clarified to be him refusing to enter a drill and then Doc Rivers consequently kicking him out of practice. So just recap it all for me. How are you feeling? One, before going into that press conference, and then two, as everything unfolded, how are you just digesting all of that?
Yeah, so I guess like first off from my end was going into this morning, my expectations were I thought it was going to be a very kind of by the books, maybe Marshawn Lynch-esque kind of answering very little, giving the by the book answers. That it was just going to be a not that Ben Simmons is an electric interview during the best of
Yeah.
circumstances, but I thought this was going to be a very coached up kind of what he said. And then as we get closer to the actual media time, it's just kind of getting a little like I, I'm in here trying to watch on my laptop sitting on it, and it's just not happening and not happening. We're getting like the reports from the in-person media that they haven't been let in yet, and it's just kind of like it's something off kind of feeling. And then we get the press release from the Sixers saying that he's been suspended for conduct detrimental to the team, and then it's like, did this guy not even come to media? Did he just leave? What happened? And then we get the reports out of that Rivers kicked him out of practice, and then we see all the Rivers comments after we're watching, which just it's just a shit show, man. And I'm so done with it. And like I said here, we have this nice little podcast planned out, a nice little topic, everything. And I don't want to talk about any of this stuff at this point. I just want to flip out on Ben Simmons for just not doing your job and not showing up and just making everything so impossible. And at this point, I think it's over. I don't think that there is a coming back from this. I don't think his value is ever going to rebound to the point that it's going to be beneficial to the Sixers. And I think it's time that they just have to sit back and take the L on this waste of a pick, waste of a franchise player, guy that doesn't have it in him and is a joke to this team. Joel Embiid is sick of it. It's clear that the whole team is done, and we're not getting anywhere until we just move on from this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Today was a very difficult day for me, honestly. In a very, I was like,
He's a joke.
you
He's a joke
it's
to the
a,
whole like national media. That's the thing too. Is it's like the entire NBA, the entire country is just laughing at the Sixers and at Ben Simmons for this shit. And it's such a simple fix to just show up and do your job, and just being unwilling to go through a basic defensive drill is just unreal to me.
yeah. And it's like, where does it end? Because, like, I don't know. Doc Rivers keeps saying, "Oh, we've had conversations." I had a conversation with him today. About what? Like, tell me about what? How does that conversation go? Clearly, he doesn't want to be here. Very clear that he doesn't want to give effort to this team or this organization at all. Clear he doesn't care about his teammates. Clear he doesn't care about the coaching staff. Clear he doesn't care about getting better and making the team better. So what are these conversations like? Is the conversation like you have to be here, so show up? And he's like, okay, but I'm not going to do anything. And basically, that's what it's done. Like I show up for my check, pay me, and I'm gonna just waltz through the motions and watch everyone else give effort. And you know, I feel for Joel Embiid. I feel for the fact that he has to be the one that's faced with all these questions because like it's not his fault. He didn't do anything wrong. I think like Doc Rivers obviously has to handle this question. Daryl Morey's being very out of context here. He's not involved at all. I haven't seen him at all recently. And then Joel just has to be forced into questioning with all these people asking him about it. And then Seth Curry gets it. It's just so bad. It's just so bad, and I don't know what they're gonna do. Like what realistically do you do right now?
I mean, like I think at this point I don't have any belief that so the Sixers are obviously in a tough spot that they want to sit back, and we're trading Ben Simmons away for value that is not worth what we're giving up just based on the fall apart and that. I have given up faith that that's going to come back. I don't think that there's a way that his value and just desire for teams around the league to want this guy will rebound to the point that it's going to help the Sixers. So now the decision is either we keep just sitting back and letting him waste away, finding him, making this a big deal, which is a huge detriment to the organization, to everybody that's trying to move on. And we think about the rest of the team that actually is invested on trying to improve, trying to make this a legitimate season. So there's to me, you just got to kind of suck it up, take the L, let's move on. Give me CJ McCollum, give me whatever the basic, the terrible. We're not going to get a good deal here. We're now invested on if Joel Embiid solely can carry this team, and it's so unfair to Joel that this is happening. It's so unfair that Ben Simmons has fully turned his back on the franchise, that he has no desire. It's simple that if he wanted to get traded this bad, if you show up, just work hard, active, or somewhat invested, you're out of here. Everybody's on the same page with what they want to happen. It's just making this so much more complicated by all this dragging through the mud, not showing effort. And who in your right mind do you think you are with when we think about the James Harden issue, which Harden obviously deserves criticism for how he handled it last year. James Harden is in another world to Ben Simmons for how good of a basketball player he is. There's not an NBA team that wouldn't benefit from James Harden being on their team. There's plenty of NBA teams that just reasonably don't want Ben Simmons and have every reason with that. When we think about just what a niche player he is and add on the attitude, all the concerns that are now coming front and center, just this guy it's time to give up on him.
And that's really how I feel right now. And this is why today's been so difficult for me, and going through this was very difficult, and writing about it, watching it unfold right there. I felt like there was always a little bit of that glimmer of whatever slim chance was there that he would, get back into it and be there. And really, I thought that was going to be today, where it was he's going to have to either say something that means something or say nothing, but at least he'll be visible. At least he'll say something. At least he'll be, there, tangibly involved. And it just hasn't worked out that way. He's made it extremely difficult to be any sort of supportive or any sort of trying to root for him at all, or look for the best case scenario, because clearly that he doesn't have any of that in his mind either. He doesn't care about the way that the media or his teammates or that the fans feel about him. He already knows that that's tarnished, that's irreversible at this point. So I don't know, man. It's tough for me specifically, just really digesting the fact that I can't root for this guy anymore. That the way that he's gone about this has been vile, disgusting, unprofessional, and just the most childish way of going about this. I don't even know what to say anymore, man. They're just so ugly. The whole situation is ugly. And I mean, obviously now Brogdon and LeVert are off the table with Brogdon's contract extension. Talked about CJ McCollum, I guess. There aren't that many options out there anymore. So did they just let him sit? Did they just let him say get out of here, or I don't know what you can keep doing?
No, I honestly think it's now doing more harm than good with him being around. Which you just see the toxic respect to Doc for at least doing something and kick him out of practice and at least making a show of it. But that doesn't change. I don't expect him to show up tomorrow with a new attitude or a new care to be here.
No.
This is the Ben Simmons we're getting if he even shows up at all. And the John Wall is a legitimate option, I think, at this point. Any of the poor fit, we're not getting anybody that it may be the Kyrie swap, which still isn't another just headache for headache kind of deal. But I think I would do that absolutely at this point. Any of just literally, this is a get him off his hands, and that there's just as much value in him not being there, not being around, than it is for him being here. Is how I look at it at this point. Is I think it's now it's detrimental for him to just be around.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that exact same thing. I feel at this point, whatever return you're getting is return enough to not deal with this bullshit anymore. Really, it's just, this is by far the biggest distraction without him acting the way that he acted today. Before that, this was already all, and Draymond Green mentioned it earlier today or yesterday, I forget when it was, but he was I want to turn on the TV and watch and learn about basketball or see something, dissecting basketball, but all I can hear about is Ben Simmons not wanting to play for the 76ers anymore. And national media, they're not covering Joel Embiid. They're covering Ben Simmons and, his lack of effort or whatever. Sixers media, they're not covering Joel Embiid. They're not covering blah, blah, blah. They're covering Ben Simmons and this whole debacle that has become an everyday thing for us. And it's just, at some point, it's going to have to end. At some point, neither side is going to win. Like, I feel like at this point, it's a standoff between Daryl Morey and Rich Paul and Ben Simmons. And like, I think at some point the pride needs to get pushed aside and say, okay, like Ben is willing to lose. Clearly, he's willing to like lose a year of his career.
Ben is willing to single-handedly now tear apart the Sixers organization. Is that he doesn't have a care for what he will or won't do. It's just like this might be it. This is probably it, James. This is probably the end of our title hopes. Simmons was the final piece. When we built this whole thing up, it was about getting these stars, and we found one in Joel Embiid. We found a guy that is the franchise centerpiece, the face of our franchise, the guy that can do it all. He's an MVP caliber player. He has the attitude. He has the guts. He has the leadership. We've seen so much growth in so many areas of just personally, on the court, everything. And it's just like, how can somebody not be willing to just fit in and do your job and just help this guy? And just, I feel so bad for Joel for being put in this spot. And like, he's left everything out there. And just obviously there's been bigger misses than Simmons when we think about Fultz, Okafor, Noel. Like, the list goes on with guys that just haven't stuck. So it's not like I'm calling him as much of a failure as a player, but it's so sad to me just what a failure it is to not be willing to just grow on the court. And just, if you improved in the slightest, there's no issue. And if you gave consistent effort to your improvement whatsoever, there's none of these issues right now. And it's so in his own head for like what he has built up with this situation that like there's no going back in his mind.
Yeah. I mean, like, even if he just is quiet all summer, doesn't say anything really, and just shows up again, like, nothing changes. Like, this team, like, I don't know, man. It's just very gutless. It's very a lack of heart with this guy. And
Yeah.
I know it's been kind of that was a big concern for a while, I guess. Flashes, different ways of showing it, I guess. But it just not, I guess to some level, just not cut out for it. But I don't know if I'm willing to say that this is the end at all. For Ben, yes, but for the Sixers, no. I still do not believe that we will see the end of Joel Embiid without them putting a legitimate title contending team around him within the next 2 to 3 seasons. And I know it's probably not going to be easy to do, but I trust in the fact that they're going to. And now, like, as much as I've hated it, as much as we've talked about how much this sucks and blah, 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 once this is over, regardless of the return that they get, this team is going to be suited entirely for Joel Embiid. And I know that isn't like, doesn't guarantee anything, but my God, give him, we've seen in very small sample sizes, him on the floor with 4 shooters. Dude, he could carry this team very, very far. And I know that you're probably not getting a high level all-star out of this, like eventually out of this. But if you even get a guy that's able to contribute at a decent level that can space the floor and do what Joel Embiid needs, I don't know. Like, he's your defensive anchor. He's your offensive all-star output. He's going to do everything that he possibly can. I'm not willing to say that the championship hopes are over.
So there's still a playoff team, no doubt about it. There's still like any team with Joel on it at the level that he's playing at is somewhat of a contender. But we're throwing so much on this guy's shoulders, and who knows if he has the knees to carry all this. Like, this is a guy that just, like, everything is now revolved around him, and I do think he's like.
And Tobias Harris, you're still paying Tobias Harris $30+ million a year. Like, he has to step up just as much as anyone else. So does he. Like, and not to like undercut Tobias, because I think he's been fantastic,
right?
And I think he's handled this well. But he has to be better. He has to be an all-star this year. He has to be.
I mean, I just don't like. The Sixers are so stuck right now. Like, what can you possibly do to kind of make, like? I'm not even sold that we're getting a starting caliber player in a trade back at this point. Like, I think I think if I'm any NBA team, I'm saying I want absolutely nothing to do with Benjamin David Simmons right now. He's not a guy that I want around my organization. Like, is and again, the disconnect to me is just on how good he is. That like when we think about the AD or the Harden holding out, it's like you can look at those guys and those are legitimate NBA like stars to an extent, and just like another level that Ben Simmons just simply is not touching. Like you are a glorified role player. You are a very good player, but what you do is such a niche and just defensively pass. Like they're not skill sets that are like you got to be able to do more if you think you're this good. You have to be able to carry a team and be a focal point. He's so limited in what he can do still. And like this is not Ben Simmons is not a guy that you throw on any team and he makes him contender. Like I'm still not sold that like sure, he's very good at what he does, but what he does is just so specific that it makes it so impossible to really put into a thing. And I think like a glorified role player is a fair take on his play style.
Yeah. Again, though, I don't think like no matter how hard this gets or how difficult or ugly or bad it gets, again, this is all a bad look on Ben. And I don't know that Daryl, like, I still don't think that Daryl Morey is going to just take like a 6-man in return for Ben. I just don't think he will, because I think he understands his value. And whether that be a compromise, like maybe they're just like, okay, go away, we'll pay you, just go away. I don't know what the resolution is, honestly, but I really don't see them not at least getting a starter in return for him.
So the only way like a trade doesn't happen is I think it's just this continued battle with I think Morty and this is on my end that I'm saying that I believe they should be done with it, take the L. I don't think Morty will think that at all. I think he's going to continue to say, well, we're just going to keep sitting back and watching, and at least let this should drag on till the deadline, which is a long time from now.
Yeah.
And like it's just going to continue. Like if he's going to show up, refuse to do drills, get kicked out of practice. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what's the benefit of keeping this guy around? What can we possibly sit on? And it's just going to be the battle for money. The only reason Simmons is back is because of money, and to be honest, I don't have an issue with that. Like, money is why we work. Money is why we do things. Like, this is your job. This is why you come to get paid. Like, I don't have an issue with that being the motivation for coming back. But I do when it comes to like, you're now who knows? I can't wait to hear when like the full release of the what happened at practice day comes out, but just like the refusing to get in drill. And when we talk about this was my other concern long term going in is obviously still a plus that he came to the building because like there was going to be no solution if he kept sitting out with that. But like him showing up was not an automatic good thing. And today is obviously evidence of that. But like think about his play style. Like if we want to talk about him being such a great defender, which he is when he's locked in and turned on, but there's certainly different elements to defense when we think like wingspan, hip fluidity, movement, footwork, that. But the bottom line is what comes with defense is effort. And if he's not checked in or playing hard, like him being this great defender is out the window. And who knows? I think it's pretty unlikely he ever plays in a game in a Sixers jersey again. I think it's going to be a lot more of these scenes and creative ways for why he can't play in games for however long he still is here. But it's just there's not I get it screws the franchise taking a bad deal here, but to me there's got to be a transition. There's got to be we're changing the chapter. There's got to be we're opening a new page and that we're moving on with this as our team, and just like the constant distractions just has to stop.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I don't even know. Like I feel like we're stuck kind of just running the same thing over and over again, and it gets worse. It doesn't get any better. But I feel like we've been kind of running into this wall over and over and over again. So I don't know. Like I'm trying to think. I'm literally just like racking my brain trying to think of a realistic move. There's nothing that comes to mind. There's nothing that really like piques my interest at all. I don't know. Like San Antonio, it's hard to tell who's even interested. And like you said, I don't know if any team's really knocking on the door right now, or if they are, they're saying, you can have a 2nd round pick and like Rondé Hollis Jefferson or something. Like you don't. No one's gonna like, especially after this. And I mean, again, it is different than the James Harden situation, obviously for a lot of reasons. But like specifically, Ben doesn't seem to have a lot of friends in the league that are like pulling for him to get traded to their team. So I don't know. I don't know what you do.
I guess it's frustrating to me. Like the Sixers start their season tomorrow, man. They tip off the regular season tomorrow night. Like
and nothing is revolving around that game. But no one asked a single question about that game. Not a single person.
And there's things I'm genuinely excited about with this roster. When we talk
Oh
about, look
yeah.
at what Isaiah Joe has become. Look at the growth of Maxey. Georges Niang is going to make an impact this year. There's stuff that to be excited about, and there's a team, and we see the conscious shift, like on the offense, to be fully structured around Joel Embiid, and that none of these sacrifices are making for the bum Ben Simmons, and be like there's things I'm genuinely hyped to see on the floor tomorrow, and it's just so overshadowed by just this circus that is surrounding the Sixers and Ben Simmons that and both sides deserve blame. Like the Sixers are not like by any means innocent in all this, but like this is stuff I want to be focused on, and it's just can't be happening.
Yeah. 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 I like like I totally agree. We're like we're stuck in this revolving door. It's like Groundhog Day. And yeah, like literally we've been waiting so long. I feel like I've been waiting so long for the Sixers season to start. And like they literally play tomorrow night. And then they play again on national television against the Brooklyn Nets on Friday. Like there's a lot that's happening. There's a lot that's going into this season. And like I don't know. We can't just keep saying like, oh, we're Doc said today, oh, we're gonna give him every chance that he wants to join the team. How many chances does he get before you're like, yeah, he's not coming back? Like he's not gonna be here for real. And when Joel Embiid is saying, I don't care about that man, I don't care about what he does, I'm not here to babysit him. Like clearly they're out on him and he's
Yeah,
out
no.
on them. And Tobias seemed fed up 5 days ago when they were asking about it. And Seth Curry didn't want to answer anything today. Like nobody wants to talk about it anymore. They realize the situation. Like I think a lot of times like reporters or people think like there's nuance to this. I don't really think there is. I think everyone notices that Ben showed up to get paid. He's not being a part of what they're doing. He doesn't give a shit. And he gets kicked out of practice. And they're like, yep, that makes sense. We have to go about our business because that's what we're here to do. But yeah, he's out. He doesn't want to be here. We don't want him here. We'd rather have someone that wants to be here. And if he doesn't want to be here, we'll do it ourselves. Like I feel like that's the mindset of this team, which it should be because this is entirely out of their control. But like, I don't know. I don't know how many times you can ask these guys for answers to questions that they don't have answers to.
And I get like the business and personal side is honestly like a little bit of an overlapping thing with when we think about like a career like the NBA. And from a business perspective, when we think about like for sure, like Simmons objectively makes the team better if he's there, with just kind of he does have elements that the team is still
Yeah.
in need of with that. But on a personal level, and I get like all the talk is like there's been so much projected about like the media making this a bigger deal when asking players questions with that. And like to an extent, I agree with just like they understand that Simmons this is a business move from his perspective, that he wants to get traded. He's doing everything possible to be there. But on a human being level, like there's no way these guys don't feel any bit of hurt from like trying to take a plane out just to talk to this guy and being shot down, or just being completely cut off from communications for a whole summer. And just like these guys did nothing to you, Ben. Like these guys are your teammates. These are the guys that played by your side, have actively stuck up for you. And you can find quotes from each of one of these guys talking about all the good things he does, brushing off concerns about his shooting, all the questions that are super valid and were well earned to be directed at Simmons. You can find the right answers from all these guys, and just to turn your back on them. And now for them to show up and be grinding for 2 weeks without you, for you to just show up and now you're the storyline, you're all that's talked about, not the work that's been put in, not the season that's right in front of us that we should be excited about. And that there's been all these positive changes that are worth noting and worth talking about, and just none of it matters until this 6'11" Australian is out of here.
Yeah. And like the craziest part is like there thing about every other team, really not much change with the Sixers. Like really barely anything. Like we're
Yeah.
talking front office remained the same. Coaching staff remained like entirely the same, which is something that literally never happens in the NBA. Like ever. You don't go through a season without an assistant coach or a defensive coach or whoever it is moving or going to take a different job. Like they brought everyone back. Most of the team is back. You replaced a few guys with a few other guys. And actually, those few guys that you replaced are actually being replaced by better guys.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's really changed is the growth of the young guys and Ben Simmons' willingness to be here. Those are the only really two things that have changed. So, like going into this year, we should be like, oh my god, we're building on a top seed in the East year, like a number one team in the East year. We're building on a team that struggled in the playoffs last year, but here's where they struggled. They can get better. Like that's what I was so like looking forward to so much, and like this team, it like I like I don't know how many times I said this on the pod or just to my friends or just to everyone saying like, this team can only get better. Like before last year, I was like, they're only going to get better. They have a chance to get better after this year and then after the next year. And little did I know that, our second best player would be uh, getting kicked out of practice and suspended by the team like a day before a game. Like that's the ridiculous U-turn that we took. But like I guess from here, looking at it, do you try to just move to like if you are gonna move him, maybe for picks, just to clear cap space? Like, are you looking to do something like that just to like,
Yeah.
okay, we'll see what we can do this year. If we have some extra cap space to go into next summer and see if we can get a guy on a deal next summer, like, is that what you're trying to do?
I mean, so realistically, like we're not getting the caliber player, like an all-star caliber player back, which has been like the bar that's been held just about this off season. I think like that's out the window at this point. I've always been more in favor, or not more in favor, but more so than a lot of people for like a picks centered piece, just based on like that the long term for like picks are always attractive when talking about a deal, and just kind of the mystique of like a pick, adding first round picks is always there. So to me, not getting an all-star player in this still opens the window to like swing for the fences moving forward. And like if we can clear cap space to sign a free agent, I know the Sixers have struggled to bring in kind of the high-level free agents for a long time now, but like there has to be somebody willing to play with Joel Embiid. Like I don't understand why this guy is not attracting like star. And I get a lot of it's kind of a personality with him, is he's a very keep to himself, play his own FIFA, do his own thing. But this is a guy that like if I'm a star around the league, if I'm a Dame Lillard, if I'm a Brad Beal, if I'm a like, there's no reason why you shouldn't want to play with this guy. Is that he has it all on the court, personality wise, his head is on straight. Like you should, everything that you should have seen and heard from him throughout this whole process should be like a wow, like that's a guy leading his team right now that's answering everything right. And I get the little digs at Simmons that maybe some people take the wrong way, but like the focus should be continue to be building around Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is the 76ers at this point, and just whatever brings you closer to that end goal of a championship, I'm totally cool with.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's the only way to like look at it. I mean, I'm trying to think like, say you're able to get picks. What if you were to like snag like Fred VanVleet
Love it.
from Toronto, like with a bunch of picks that you get from like San Antonio or wherever? Like, I feel like that's the type of guy you're gonna shoot for. I think he'd be great here. Like, and I don't know how willing Toronto is to part with a guy like that. Like, it's just gonna have to be something like that where either it's 2 moves in a row or a 3-team deal. Whether it be like D'Angelo Russell or somebody like that, I feel is like the best you're gonna get at this point. And I mean, obviously it's disappointing considering the first like kind of list of guys was like Dame, Brad Beal, whoever else, and then it's like, oh well, maybe it'll be CJ McCollum.
I would be
And
jumping for joy for CJ
if it was
McCollum
CJ
right now.
McCollum, yeah, no, now I would. Not like
Yeah.
a month ago, I was like, hell no, come on, hell no, and then I'm like, yeah, I hate so much that like it makes me sick to my stomach hearing the words come out of my mouth being like, I don't want him here anymore. Like I want him gone. That to me is like sacrilegious. Like that's so backwards in my mind to say, but like it's the reality of the situation is that like I can't pretend anymore that there is a right or wrong side to this, like, or there is an understandable side to this. Cause to me, there's like anymore, there's not. And a guy that has been so like blindly loyal to a player and a team, seeing that this guy could just so blatantly turn his back and cut this team off the way that he did is just very disappointing to me and just not totally not cool. Not at
Yeah.
all.
I mean, business is business, but it's actively disrespectful
Yeah,
to all these guys. And
there's ethics in business though. There
yeah,
are. And
absolutely.
like we learn about that. Like you learn about that every single damn day. Like there are ethics to this. There are lines you do and don't cross and maybe he feels like lines were crossed towards him, which is, whatever.
So
But
absurd though. Like at the end
yeah.
of the day, what wrong was done to this guy? Like you were almost traded for James Harden. Like great. Like that's part of Embiid literally at his beginning media day press conference this year brought this up and he said, "What if the Warriors call and want to trade Steph and Clay for me? Do you think the Sixers do that? I would do that." Like you have to at least
Yeah.
have your head on straight enough to like
A little bit of
understand.
self-awareness.
Yeah, understand what world you're living in. That it's like Like, and frankly, I wish the Sixers had done that deal, and I think
Yep.
everybody in the city wishes that they would have done that deal at that point. And like Ben Simmons has never been wronged by the organization of the Sixers. Like, we've made active like shields of like the critiques of him. There's been so many crazy adjustments to like the offense and allowing him to be his. There never has been enough pressure on him to shoot the ball and to grow. There never has been anybody in his face enough to tell him what he's not doing and actively push him to get there. And his little Hollywood head can like twist it as much as he wants, but like the Sixers have not hurt Ben Simmons in any way in the way that he's trying to make it out to be.
Yeah, and like I don't know, man. I hate that this is gonna go down the same way like the Magic Penny Shaq thing, and like
I don't think it will. I really think. Well, first off,
dude,
whatever player that comes in here is going to be from a Philadelphia perspective is like at least
the
that's not
savior.
Ben Simmons. Like
No,
any competent player that is shooting the ball and just doing basic basketball things is going to be like a sign of life.
yeah,
And
no,
then,
it's literally if like CJ McCollum came in here and just like does what CJ McCollum does for the last like
right,
8 seasons, he would be like
love,
the son of God.
yeah,
Like Philadelphia would hold him in 2 hands and savor him for the rest of our lives because of the shit that we've been put through. Like, but I just mean like in 10 years, in 15 years, like when I'm teaching my kids about basketball and the Sixers, and I'm like, yeah, you know, we had a chance. We had a chance to be really, really good for a long time. And when I was in high school and I was like, holy shit, we got Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. And then, oh my God, we got Jimmy Butler and we have Tobias Harris. And it's like right then and there when they lost the series against the Raptors, I was obviously like gut wrenching feeling. But the only thing that didn't make me hate my life entirely was the fact that there was a chance to do it again. And there was a
yeah,
chance to build on that. And there was a chance to make this team better. And it just has not gotten there again. And I don't know. I don't know where you want to like where you're pointing the fingers, who you're pointing the fingers at. If it's, the front office was in question for a long time, and then the coaching was in question for a long time, and then the coaching still in question in my point of view. And then Ben is apparently the largest baby that's ever existed in the history of the universe. The Sixers didn't have a backup center until last year. They just didn't have one on the roster. But like there's so much that goes into this, and there's so much disappointing things that have happened that it's just like at this point, I think the minute that he goes, you're turning the leaf. You're entering a different era.
for sure.
Because Embiid did really have a breakout year last year. Like Embiid last year is an entirely different player than what he was before. There were flashes of that Embiid, but really he like cemented himself as like honestly one of the greats in this franchise history. And like that being capitalized on, that being the main focus of this team and kind of contouring everything else to fit in with that can change the look of this franchise and 100% will in the way that they play. And I think they'll actually end up being a modern basketball team, which we haven't seen. But like just getting him out of here is enough to turn the page and end that era of Sixers basketball. And like as much as I think that's necessary right now, it's also heartbreaking knowing that what could have been with that group of guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a what if factor, and especially like I've said this before, but like a team built around Ben Simmons and a team built around Joel Embiid individually just don't look that different, and it's frustrating that together we just haven't found that balance. But that being said, so he's inevitably about to get shipped off. Do you think Simmons, he goes somewhere, he can ever become like the number one guy in the way that he believes he will?
Yeah. The weirdest part is yes, and for like reasons maybe you don't even think so. Like I think Ben now. I mean, he's going like if he's on a bad team, he inevitably will be a very good player, an all-star, and him and Joel Embiid will end up on an all-star team together, and that's again, and it's
I
gonna
have
be
Embiid
hilarious when it
shipped on
happens.
him.
Yeah, and it's gonna be hilarious when it happens, and it will. But it's gonna be a Russ KD thing, like where it's like, oh yeah, like we're not doing that, we're not talking, blah blah blah. But like, I think if he ends up in like Sacramento, honestly though, in Sacramento, like Darren Fox is whatever. If he ends up in these places, like whether it's Indiana, like if he ends up in Indiana and they kind of like clean house and start with Ben Simmons, like giving him the ball and asking him to do whatever he's going to do, like he can do that, and without any pressure, without any like anyone asking or expecting anything of him, like it's an open gym in Indiana, he will go do that. His teams won't be successful, but he will be on a personal level. And I think at the end of the day, that's all he really cares about now, which
Okay.
sucks. But yeah, I think not in like I don't think he'll go out and he'll be like he's not going to carry a team deep into the playoffs or to a championship. I don't think he has that capability, but I do think he has the capability of putting up empty stats
Okay.
to a degree that makes him look successful. Like his impact is going to be the same here as it was, or the same anywhere else as it was here. But the stats will be inflated because of what is asked of him, I guess, if that makes sense.
All right, yeah. So I somewhat agree with that part of it. With just, I mean, I think you can look around all 30 NBA teams, and I don't think there's a single one that he goes to and is the number one guy. Like, I don't think he's cut out for what he believes he is. I think he can be an empty stats guy. I get a lot of Russell Westbrook vibes without any of the passion, and I just like Russ so much more for at least he had a desire to win and a desire to compete that Simmons doesn't have anywhere remotely near. I don't think I just can never put my mind past not just being offended as a professional basketball player when guys will not step out past the paint to guard you and you have a wide open shot, and just the lack of like I guess just balls to just look at that and understand like you should feel disrespected that that's what's happening, and just the amount of yes men that's surrounding him telling him all the great things he does. And a lot of this is stuff I had packaged up that I was trying to save until he was officially traded, but I think today did it for me. So like even when we think about this summer with the Chris Johnson video with the pick and roll where the guys are going the fighting over on the pick for him, like there is no NBA player that will ever be go over on the screen for Ben Simmons. Just that's just never gonna happen. And I don't care if you can fake shoot a couple threes and put your summer videos in there. Like that's just simply never going to happen. And I don't think he ever develops past the player he is right now. And he's sure like a fine player, but he is so far below like superstar status and like a guy that can contribute to a championship basketball team. The flaws that he has in his games are going to show up every single year in the playoffs, regardless of what team he's on. And he's going to be a fine regular season player for his entire career, but there's no way this guy is ever capable of winning an NBA championship or being on a real contending team. And I mean, the Sixers were a better team without him on the floor of this playoffs. And I wish Rivers had the stones then to just bench him. And obviously it couldn't have ended any worse than it did right now. But like he has been for sure responsible for crippling some Sixers' chances at a championship. And frankly, if there's pretty much any other player in the roster for his spot in that individual Hawks series, I think that the tone of this offseason is completely different. I think the Sixers no doubt win that series. And like it's such a just marginal improvements that could have been made to that specific case that changes everything here. And even just like if Danny Green doesn't get hurt, I still don't think the Sixers lose that series. As little things like that. But Simmons deserves the blame. And you hear the whispers with the massage thing, which cracked me up too, about an inconclusive text for an inconclusive COVID test for one of the Sixers massage people. And they asked the team if anyone was around him, and Simmons was the only one that said yes. And all the Sixers players like doubting that he actually was, and just thinking he was looking for an out for Game 7. And who knows how much weight there is to like that story. But I do think all the signs of this guy just being mentally weak and not cut out to be a professional basketball player are valid. And just like that's where we're at. We need to call a spade, and the franchise is going to be better moving on.
Yeah, and I think that's the reality that I want to conclude on. Kind of is just like as dark as it may seem right now, it like it can't get. I don't even want to say that because I didn't think it could get worse, and then today it got worse. So you never know. It could get worse from here, but like it's always darkest before the dawn, as they say, and it seems like there's 100% something on the horizon, a change, inevitably ahead, and it's gonna have to happen, right? We all know it's gonna have to happen. It's gonna happen eventually. I think Doc Rivers spoke today a lot about protecting the team. I don't really know what he means by that because I think he's their worst enemy. But like Doc,
Not today.
and
Not today.
not today. He's not. Not today. He's not. But like to protect this team, the best way to protect this team is to remove the biggest issue from the team, and the biggest issue right now is obviously Ben. So I think, I hope sooner rather than later there's something that happens. I don't know what it'll be. I don't know who it'll be for. I don't know, but there's going to be a solution. There has to be one way or another. I'm sure we'll continue to get information today, tomorrow, the rest of this week. But like, there's actually basketball being played now, so there's much more to be understood and watched and seen and talked about than there has been the last like 3 months or so. So I'm hoping that while it is still a little bit cloudy, we can move on and actually cover this team for what they are. But there's always going to be that little asterisk next to what they're doing until this problem is resolved, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as confident that this is an immediate solution. I think that there's still going to be a lot of FU offs between Simmons and Daryl Morey and Rich Paul and just all the behind the scenes. And I think Morey's not as willing to swallow his pride as we are right now. And from his perspective, like, I totally get it. Like, he came into this situation, he has limited assets to make it work. But I still could see this getting worse before it gets better. And I hope a trade happens as soon as possible. I hope by the end of the day that there's a trade, that he's no longer in Philly. But frankly, I just don't expect that to be the case. I think this is going to continue to drag on and continue to cloud over the season that unfortunately somehow starts tomorrow.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird because we haven't had time to prepare for that specifically. It's been all about Ben. So I guess, I mean, we've talked about it a lot at pretty significant length now. So we can end this on a decent note in that the Sixers do play basketball tomorrow. There is a Sixers regular season basketball game tomorrow. It counts. Game 1 of 82. Joel Embiid is playing.
Zion Williamson is not.
Zion Williamson is not playing. Isaiah Joe is going to play. Tyrese Maxey is going to play. The whole everything else is going to be all right. We're going to figure it out. Here, so give me your prediction for tomorrow night.
Yeah,
score,
I mean,
game.
So no Zion. I think it's a good game to start out for the Sixers. I think they win. Originally, I thought it was a game. On my podcast prep prior to this morning, I said I did think Simmons was going to play. I think it made sense to get it out of the way in a road game. Now he's suspended for the conduct, so that's out the window. But regardless of who's there, I do think they beat the Pelicans. I think without Zion, it's a good starter game, and yeah, so I think a pretty convincing Sixers win.
Yeah, I believe so too. I don't think the Pelicans have much defense to what the Sixers are bringing to the table in game 1. Just hope they're focused. I hope they're ready to go. And then they play Brooklyn on Friday at home in their home opener on national television. And I'm sure there will be nothing to talk about through their national broadcasts, So all we'll hear about that. And I'm watching that thing on mute and I'll just listen to the radio or something. I can't do it with them. They already only talk about it as is. So now all we're going to hear is just like a heavy dose of nothing about the game and only about Ben and just how terrible the situation is. So I guess we can wrap it up here. It's been a mind-boggling morning. I can't believe it's not even 2:00 yet. And all of this has happened and we've had to deal with all this. So thank you guys for tuning in. Of course, we appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys soon.